My son-in-law rudely invited the whole family on a luxurious vacation and forgot about me. There was only enough money for tickets for him, Jennifer, and my in-laws. I smiled and said, "Enjoy yourselves." When they arrived at the hotel, I was waiting there. "Are you stalking us? Get lost!" they shouted, but the security guard stepped forward. After he spoke, they fell to their knees, begging for forgiveness. I set the table with the good dishes. The set Margaret and I received as a wedding gift 40 years ago, white porcelain with a thin gold rim. Only 3 pieces were chipped after all this time. Evening light came through the curtains, the same curtains we'd hung in 1998, casting everything in amber. I'd made Jennifer's favorite pot roast with carrots and potatoes, the recipe her mother had perfected before the cancer took her. A name card sat at each place setting, carefully printed. Small touches mattered. They arrived 20 minutes late. Kevin pushed through the door first, Jennifer trailing behind him with her phone already out. His parents followed, Patricia in a silk blouse that likely cost more than my monthly electric bill, Dennis in a blazer with gold buttons. They looked around my dining room like tourists in a museum of poverty. Kevin's handshake was brief, dismissive. "Thanks for having us." "Of course, please sit. Dinner's ready." I'd positioned everyone carefully. Jennifer to my right, Kevin beside her, his parents across. At least the head of the table remained mine. I brought the roast out on Margaret's serving platter, steam rising, the smell filling the small room. "This looks quaint," Patricia said, her eyes scanning the walls, the dated wallpaper, the framed photos of Jennifer at various ages. "I'm glad the promotion came through, Jennifer. You worked hard for it." She barely glanced up from her phone. These things happen when you network properly." The words stung more than she knew. I'd made 3 calls to former business associates, spent 2 hours on the phone with a hotel chain executive who owed me a favor, all to ensure her application reached the right desk. She thought it was her networking. Kevin reached for the wine bottle I'd brought, a 2015 Napa Cabernet I'd selected specifically for tonight, $60 I probably shouldn't have spent. He examined the label, eyebrows raised, approval flickering. Now this is a decent vintage. Finally something worth drinking in this place. He poured for Patricia first, then Dennis, then Jennifer. The bottle moved around the table in a careful circle, skipping my glass entirely before Kevin set it down at the far end, well out of my reach. Jennifer watched this happen and said nothing. "Kevin has such refined taste," Patricia said, sipping. "We raised him to appreciate quality." Dennis leaned back like an appraiser at an estate sale. "Robert, have you considered updating? We just redid our kitchen. Granite countertops, stainless appliances, the resale value alone." Patricia interrupted, reaching out to touch the curtains between her thumb and forefinger, testing the thread count. "They must be, 20 years old?" "They work fine," I said. Kevin shifted his chair, scraping the hardwood. He angled toward his parents, forming a wall with Jennifer in the middle. She turned her body to match his orientation, her back partially to me now. I passed the potatoes. Kevin took the bowl without looking at me. "So, big announcement," he said, grinning at his parents. "We're doing a family vacation, St. Thomas a week. Me, Jen, Mum, Dad, leaving the 21st. My fork paused halfway to my mouth. "That sounds wonderful. What resort?" I asked. "Paradise Cove, 5-star private beach, the works." He was animated now, gesturing with his wine glass. My wine. We only had budget for 5 tickets, us and my parents. The mathematics of the statement hung in the air. 5 tickets, 4 people listed. The exclusion was deliberate, calculated. "I can cover my own expenses," I said, keeping my voice level. "I'd love to join the family." Jennifer's phone slid across the table toward Patricia. Vacation photos loaded on the screen. Jennifer leaned in to point at resort amenities, not looking at me. "We need a break from you, Dad." The room contracted. Patricia and Dennis suddenly found their plates fascinating. Kevin jumped in quickly, falsely apologetic. "It's not personal, Robert. You know how it is. Quality time with the immediate family." My hand had been reaching for the serving dish. I watched it freeze mid-air, detached like it belonged to someone else. Slowly I lowered it to my lap. The pot roast sat untouched on my plate, congealing in its juices. "Of course," I heard myself say. I stood, the chair scraped back. "Let me get dessert." Nobody protested. Kevin was already refilling everyone's wine, everyone's but mine. As I walked to the kitchen, my plate was still full. Through the doorway I heard Patricia asking about spa packages, Dennis suggesting golf excursions, Jennifer's laugh, light and easy, the way it used to sound when she was 12, and I'd take her for ice cream after school. I didn't get dessert. I walked past the kitchen, down the hall, up the stairs to my bedroom. The conversation continued without pause, as if my absence hadn't registered at all. I closed the door and sat on the edge of my bed, still wearing the same jacket I'd worn to Jennifer's wedding and to her promotion dinner last month. The same jacket Kevin's family had just mocked. Through the floor I heard more laughter, the clink of glasses, my wine, my table, my home, their celebration. Something shifted then, precise and cold, like tumblers falling into place inside a lock. The house settled into silence around 10. Doors downstairs closed. They were staying in the guest rooms, of course. Too much wine to drive home safely. I sat on the bed's edge, jacket finally removed and draped over the chair where I'd laid out my clothes that morning, hopeful this dinner would bring us closer. Sleep wasn't coming. I removed my reading glasses, cleaned them with my shirt hem, and put them back on. The bedroom looked the same as it had for 20 years. Margaret's jewelry box still sat on the dresser, now empty. Everything inside had been sold to pay for her final hospital bills that insurance wouldn't cover. Jennifer had been 23 then, fresh out of college, crying at the funeral. I'd held her hand through the entire service. When did her hand let go of mine? Memories came in sharp, non-linear fragments. The wedding, $35,000, most of my savings at the time, Jennifer in her dress, radiant, Kevin beside her, vaguely uncomfortable in his tuxedo. I'd written the check thinking, this is what fathers do, this is love made tangible. The car, $15,000 for the down payment on their Tesla, the one they drove past me last Christmas without stopping, heading to Kevin's parents for dinner. "Just a loan, Dad, we'll pay you back." That was 4 years ago. I'd stopped asking about repayment after the first year. Furniture for their first apartment. The emergency roof repair they couldn't afford. The $8,000 credit card bill Kevin explained away as temporary cash flow issues. Every time I'd written the check. Every time Jennifer would hug me and say, "You're the best, Dad." I stood restless and walked to my home office down the hall. The laptop sat on the desk, password protected, containing a life my daughter knew nothing about. I opened it, entered the code, and watched the screen illuminate. 4 properties. A hotel in Tampa bought in 2008 when the market crashed, renovated and turned profitable within 18 months. The boutique inn in Sarasota, acquired in 2012. 2 bed and breakfasts in St. Augustine, purchased as a pair in 2019. All managed through Wilson Holdings LLC, all generating steady income, all invisible to my family. Current total value, $3.2 million. I'd built this quietly and deliberately after Margaret died. working double shifts at the hospital where I'd been a facilities manager, saving every extra dollar, learning real estate investment through night classes and weekend seminars. The LLC was registered under my middle name, Thomas, to keep it separate and private. I'd told Jennifer I was taking on extra work to stay busy. She'd never asked for details. I opened my spreadsheet. 70,000. That was the conservative estimate of what I'd given them over 12 years, not counting tonight's dinner and not counting the phone calls I'd made to secure her promotion. 70,000, and they needed a break from me. Around 3 in the morning, I went to Jennifer's childhood bedroom. The guest room had been stripped of most personal items, but a few photos remained on the wall. Jennifer at 8, gap-toothed hugging me at Disney World. At 16, holding her first-place debate trophy, my arm around her shoulders. At 21, college graduation, her smile genuine and proud. I touched the frame. The glass was cool under my fingertip. When had that girl disappeared? Dawn came slowly, grey light creeping through the windows. Around 7 I heard voices downstairs. Low, conversational. Jennifer and Kevin awake early, talking in the kitchen. I moved to the hallway barefoot, staying close to the wall. The old house had good acoustics if you knew where to stand. At the top of the stairs, their voices carried clearly. "We just need to approach it right," Jennifer said in that careful tone she used when manipulating situations at work. "Make him think it's his idea. He's sitting on equity he doesn't need." Kevin, dismissive as always. "This house is way too big for one person." "He's stubborn about it," Jennifer continued, "but if we frame it as simplifying his life, the old man doesn't have expensive taste anyway. He'll probably be happier in a one-bedroom." Her laugh was small and complicit. "Once we get the house sold," she said, voice gaining confidence, "we can pay off the cards and maybe look at that bigger place in Winter Park. Your dad won't even notice the difference. He'll just be happy to help the family." Kevin twisted the phrase into mockery. "Help the family." The family planned to convince me to sell my home, Margaret's home, so they could upgrade theirs. I returned to my bedroom with the same careful precision I'd used to approach the stairs. I closed the door silently, sat at my desk, and opened the laptop again. My hands didn't shake. That surprised me. They should have. Instead, they typed Paradise Cove Resort, St. Thomas Ain for sale. The listing loaded: luxury beachfront property, 80 rooms, private marina, established clientele. Asking price $185 million. The photos showed pristine beaches, infinity pools, couples drinking cocktails at sunset. The same resort where my daughter planned to vacation without me, funded by my wine money, my dinner hospitality, my endless forgiveness. I opened my leather journal, in the one where I tracked hotel acquisitions, wrote financial notes and planned expansions. On a fresh page I wrote the number 1,850,000. Then I wrote August 16th, then Paradise Cove. My handwriting was steady, precise. I stared at those words for a long moment, then checked the property details again. Owner retiring, motivated to sell, closing possible within 60 days. Contact Martine Reeves, Commercial Properties International. Downstairs, Jennifer and Kevin were probably making coffee now, planning their pitch to get me to downsize, to simplify, to free up money for the family. I looked at my laptop screen showing Paradise Cove, glowing in Caribbean sunshine, and something crystallized in my chest. Not rage. Rage is too hot and chaotic. This was colder, sharper, clarity. I pulled up my business bank account, the one Jennifer didn't know existed. Available liquid assets after reserving operating capital, $2.1 million. Paradise Cove Resort, St. Thomas, I said aloud to my empty room. For sale, $185 million. I wrote it again in my journal, underlining it twice. The sun was fully up now, light streaming through those old curtains Patricia had mocked. Downstairs, my daughter was planning to take my home. In 10 days, she'd be lying on a beach I was forbidden to visit, drinking cocktails I was deemed unworthy to share. I smiled, not a happy smile. The laptop screen still glowed with Paradise Cove's listing when dawn broke fully. I'd been at my desk for hours. Coffee had grown cold beside me. Sleep seemed irrelevant. My body ran on something sharper than caffeine, purpose, perhaps, or the clarity that comes when you finally stop pretending. I heard movement downstairs around 8, Jennifer's footsteps, familiar after 35 years, heading to the kitchen. I waited 3 minutes, then followed. She stood at the counter pouring coffee, still in pajamas, hair pulled back. I'd set out her preferred creamer earlier, French vanilla, the expensive kind. Small details, I still knew them all. "Morning," I said, reaching for a mug. "Hey!" She didn't look up from her phone. I poured slowly, measuring my tone. Kevin was on the phone upstairs, something about quarterly projections. "You're taking a trip soon, somewhere tropical?" I asked. "St. Thomas, Paradise Cove Resort. We leave next week." "How long?" "The 21st through the 28th. She sipped her coffee, scrolling. She didn't ask if I'd reconsidered joining. The exclusion was a settled fact not worth revisiting. "Well, enjoy it," I said. "You've been working hard." "Thanks." She glanced up briefly, almost surprised by the sentiment, then returned to her phone. Kevin's voice carried from upstairs. Jennifer finished her coffee, rinsed the mug, and headed back to the guest room. I listened to her footsteps fade, then returned to my office. Paradise Cove Resort, August 21st through 28th, 7 nights. I pulled up satellite imagery. The property sat on the northwest coast of St. Thomas, tucked into its namesake cove, 25 rooms arranged in a horseshoe around a central pool, single road access. Nearest competitor marked 15 miles north. A boutique operation, independent ownership recently listed. I scrolled through the realtor's description, owner's urgent financial situation, motivated seller. My favorite words. I opened my lock drawer and extracted the files I'd need. LLC documentation for Wilson Holdings, 3 years of tax returns showing legitimate business income, bank statements proving liquid assets, evidence of capacity. Then I reached for my phone. Robert Wilson calling account services. The banker picked up on the second ring. I'd been with this bank for 20 years, moved enough money through their hands to warrant immediate attention. "Mr. Wilson, how can I help?" I paced to the window, watching Jennifer and Kevin load their cars outside, unaware. "I need access to 1.9 million within 48 hours. A combination of liquid accounts and the credit line against the Tampa and Sarasota properties." Silence. "That's aggressive timing, Robert. May I ask why?" "Investment opportunity. Time sensitive. Can you do it?" "I'll have preliminary approval by end of business today." "Good. I'll wait for your call." I hung up before he could ask questions. Jennifer's car pulled out of the driveway. Kevin's followed. 30 seconds later, the house settled into quiet. I spent the next 4 hours researching everything about Paradise Cove, ownership history, revenue patterns, guest reviews, mostly positive, some complaints about dated decor and slow Wi-Fi, staffing structure, lean operation, general manager Amanda Parker running day-to-day, owner increasingly absent. Current occupancy rate, 62%, plenty of room for improvement. The bones were perfect. By 2 in the afternoon, I drafted my approach. I called David Richardson's office, reached his secretary, and scheduled an emergency consultation for 4. Then I drove downtown 20 minutes through Orlando traffic, rehearsing my explanation at each stoplight. Keep emotion out. Present this as business with a personal motivation, not revenge, a strategic acquisition. David's office occupied the 14th floor of a glass tower on Orange Avenue. He met me in the conference room, tie loosened, reading glasses perched on his head. "Robert, your message said urgent." I spread documents across his polished table, the Paradise Cove listing, my financial statements, and a handwritten timeline showing I needed ownership by August 20th. He studied them, curiosity shifting to concern. "You want to buy a hotel in the Virgin Islands in 72 hours? "Yes." "May I ask why the impossible timeline?" "My daughter is vacationing there August 21st. She doesn't know I'm buying the property. I need to own it before she arrives." David removed his glasses and set them down with care. "That's Robert," he said. "I understand there's personal motivation here, but acquiring commercial property in the Virgin Islands with 72 hours of due diligence is professionally inadvisable. The property is already listed. The owner is motivated. I have the capital. What's the actual legal risk?" He sighed. The sound of a lawyer recognizing a client who won't be deterred. Title issues, undisclosed liens, structural problems. "You're buying sight unseen." "I'm buying strategically." He tapped my notes about the house. "You want your Orlando property in an irrevocable trust, with me as sole trustee and beneficiary, so no one can force a sale without your consent. You understand this means Jennifer can't inherit it in the standard way if something happens to you?" I nodded. "I understand perfectly." David studied me across the table. Whatever he saw there, the same cold clarity I'd felt since dawn, made him nod slowly. "I'll need to bring in a Virgin Islands attorney, someone local who knows the territory." "Do it. Bill me whatever it costs." He leaned forward. "Robert, what did she do?" I met his eyes. "She needed a break from me. I'm giving her one." He didn't press further. I left at 5:30, drove home through rush hour, and called Michael Thompson from the car. Thompson Notary Services. "Michael, it's Robert Wilson. I need trust documents prepared. My residential property transferred to a personal trust. How quickly can you draft them?" "Standard timeline is a week for review. I need them in 3 days." Silence stretched. "That's possible. My expedited rate is whatever it is." "Fine. Send the paperwork tonight. I'll have it by email within 2 hours." Back home, the house felt different. I walked through rooms I'd lived in for 26 years, seeing them as Jennifer and Kevin saw them, dated, small, beneath their aspirations. The curtains Patricia had mocked, the dining room where I'd served pot roast while they poured my wine for everyone but me. This was still my home. They would never take it. My phone rang at 7. The banker, "Mr. Wilson, your credit line is approved. $1.9 million available Monday morning." "Perfect. The purpose of the loan listed as commercial property acquisition. Is that correct?" "Yes, very good. We'll have documents ready for signature." I made one more call that evening. Martin Reeves, Commercial Properties International, the listing agent for Paradise Cove. "Mr. Reeves, my name is Robert Wilson. I'm interested in Paradise Cove Resort in St. Thomas. Is the owner accepting offers?" His voice brightened. "Absolutely. When would you like to schedule a viewing?" "Tomorrow afternoon." "That's very soon. You're flying in from Orlando?" "Yes, I can be there by afternoon." "This is a serious inquiry, Mr. Reeves. Proof of funds and can close within 48 hours. You'll be pleased. Call when you land." I opened airline bookings and hovered my finger over the purchase button for American Airlines Flight 1847, departing 9:30 a.m. tomorrow. Across town, Jennifer and Kevin were probably having dinner somewhere nice, celebrating their exclusive vacation. I clicked Purchase. Confirmation arrived instantly. Boarding pass attached, departure 9:30 a.m., arrival 3:15 p.m., accounting for the time change. Plenty of daylight left to see the property and meet the owner. I forwarded the flight details to David with a simple message. I'll need that Virgin Islands attorney's contact info before I land. His reply arrived within minutes. Already arranged. William Clark expects you at 4 p.m. tomorrow. His attorney will have preliminary documents ready. Robert, be careful, David added. I closed the laptop and looked around my office. Hotel files, trust documents Michael would send, the proof of funds letter from the bank. Everything in order, everything aligned. In 3 days, my family would board a plane to paradise, excited about their exclusive vacation, their break from the old man who embarrassed them with dated curtains and worn jackets. They had no idea what was waiting for them. I allowed myself a brief nod, not a smile, and began packing my briefcase for tomorrow's flight. The flight landed in late afternoon heat that hit like a wall when the cabin door opened. Cyril E. King Airport was smaller than I expected. Tourists everywhere in bright shirts and straw hats, families dragging roller bags toward rental car counters. I carried only my briefcase. This wasn't a vacation. The taxi driver knew Paradise Cove without needing the address. Nice place, he said, pulling away from arrivals. You staying there? Business meeting? He nodded, navigating through Charlotte Amalie narrow streets, past cruise terminals and duty-free shops, then up into the hills. The road wound along the coast with occasional glimpses of turquoise water between palm trees and resort developments. 15 minutes later, we turned onto a private drive marked by a weather-worn sign, Paradise Cove Resort. The property was smaller than the photos suggested, a horseshoe of 2-story buildings painted pale yellow, arranged around a central pool that needed resurfacing. The lobby sat at the horseshoe's base, worn tile floor, a ceiling fan clicking unevenly, furniture that had been expensive once but showed its age now. Beautiful bones beneath the neglect. A man waited in the lobby, late 50s, shoulders slumped into feet before we even shook hands. Mr. Wilson. William Clark. His grip was weak. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Thank you for meeting me on short notice. When someone says they can close in 48 hours, I make time. He gestured toward the grounds. Would you like a tour? We walked the property slowly. William pointed out features, renovated kitchenettes in each room, a private beach accessed down a stone stairway, a small restaurant that served breakfast included with the room. His voice carried the tone of a man reciting facts he'd repeated too many times, hoping they'd sound better with repetition. I built this place 20 years ago, he said as we reached the pool. Poured everything into it. The market changed, big resorts moved in, and I understand business is timing. He looked at me with something like gratitude. You're not going to tear it down and turn it into condos? I'm keeping it as a hotel. I have plans for it. Relief washed across his face. We continued past rooms with ocean views, standard rooms facing the garden, and the small gym with equipment that hadn't been updated this decade. Everything was functional, nothing failing, just tired. A woman emerged from the office, tablet in hand, professional despite the heat. Early 40s, dark hair pulled back, efficient movements. Mr. Clark, the Johnsons checked out early. They're requesting a partial refund for... She stopped when she saw me. Amanda, this is Robert Wilson, potential buyer. Amanda Parker, general manager, she said, extending her hand with a firm grip and direct eye contact. Will you be keeping the current staff? We're small but efficient. I handle daily operations, bookings, guest services. How long? 8 years. 8 years meant she knew every system, every guest complaint, every vendor relationship. That knowledge had value. We left her returning to her office and continued to William's cramped space behind the front desk, paperwork stacked on every surface, and a computer running an outdated reservation system. He gestured to a chair. I sat, briefcase across my lap. "Your listing says 185 million, I said. "I can close in 48 hours at 172, all cash, minimal contingencies." William's fingers drummed the desk once. "That's acceptable." "When can we start paperwork?" "Today, now." I opened my briefcase and pulled out the offer David's office had prepared. William read it slowly, lips moving. When he looked up, something had shifted in his expression. Hope or exhaustion ending. "You're serious?" "Completely." I slid my bank letter across his desk, proof of funds and ability to close immediately. He read it twice, then set it down with the careful precision of someone handling something precious. "I'll call my attorney. We can have preliminary documents by tonight. I'll be at the Marriott if you need me." I stood and extended my hand. "We'll close this, William, by Friday." His handshake was firmer this time. That evening I worked with David's Virgin Islands contact, a sharp-eyed attorney named Sarah Chen, who walked me through title documents, inspection reports, and existing bookings with the speed of someone who'd done this too many times. She flagged minor issues, permits needing renewal, vendor contracts transferring with ownership, staff employment agreements. "The property is sound," she concluded around midnight. "Financially distressed but structurally solid. If you're comfortable with the accelerated timeline, I see no reason not to proceed. Draw up closing documents. I want to sign Friday morning." She nodded, already making notes. By Thursday afternoon, we sat again in William's office. Him, me, Sarah, and William's attorney handling final review. Numbers aligned, documents signed. I wired the deposit, 172,000, 10% down. William's hand trembled slightly when we shook on it. "You're saving my life," he said quietly. I didn't respond. This wasn't about saving anyone. Friday morning, the final closing took 3 hours. Wire transfers, title transfers, keys exchanged, ownership documents filed with the Virgin Islands Recorder's Office. By noon, Paradise Cove Resort belonged to Wilson Holdings LLC. I sat alone in what was now my office, reviewing paperwork with the strange detachment of someone who'd just executed a plan that still felt surreal. Then I opened Amanda's reservation system and scrolled through August bookings, August 21st through 28th, the Morgan party, 4 guests, deluxe ocean view suite, prepaid deposit, balance due at checkout. I took a photo of the screen with my phone and called Amanda to my office. She arrived within minutes, professional weariness in her expression. New ownership meant uncertainty. She was cautious. "Amanda, thank you for coming. Please sit." She sat, tablet ready, prepared to take notes or defend her position. I wasn't sure which. "I'm keeping you on as general manager. Your salary increases 15% effective immediately." Her eyes widened. "Thank you, you'll earn it." I pulled out a handwritten list I'd prepared. "These room reassignments and pricing adjustments take effect August 21st. She scanned it, frowning. "These are significant changes. Some guests have already confirmed reservations at current rates. Ownership changed, terms changed. Virgin Islands booking law allows modifications with 72 hours notice." "That's technically correct, but guests won't be happy," she said. "There's one reservation in particular, August 21st, the Morgan party." She checked her tablet. "Yes, deluxe ocean view, week-long stay." I looked at her. "Change it. Standard room. No ocean view. Apply the new pricing structure, a 40% increase across all services." Amanda looked up slowly. "But they've already confirmed at the old rate." "New ownership, new terms. They'll be notified Monday. That gives them 74 hours. She studied me for a long moment. "This is personal." I held her gaze. "This is business. Will you follow these instructions?" After a pause, she nodded. "Yes, sir." When they arrive and express surprise, I said, you will inform them that I am the owner, not before. Understood. Good. I'm flying back to Orlando tomorrow. You have my contact information for anything urgent. Otherwise, I trust your judgment on daily operations. She stood, holding the list, clearly processing what this meant. May I ask, the Morgan party? Who are they to you? Family, I said. They wanted a break from me. I'm ensuring they get exactly what they asked for. Understanding dawned in her expression, followed by something that might have been sympathy or respect. She didn't ask further questions. I'll make the changes today, she said. Thank you, Amanda. After she left, I sat in the quiet office reviewing staff files, vendor contracts, and operational procedures. This wasn't just revenge theatre. I'd bought a real business, and I intended to run it properly. The hotel would succeed. That was important. Not for the money, but for principle. I'd built something from nothing before. I could do it again. That evening I stood on Paradise Cove's beach with my feet in sand, still warm from the day's sun. The cove curved around me in both directions, private and pristine, waves lapping gently against the shore. 2 days from now, Jennifer and Kevin would stand in this exact spot, expecting their exclusive paradise vacation. They would find something very different waiting. I slipped the ownership deed into my briefcase and closed it with a quiet click. Tomorrow I'd fly home, I'd maintain normal behavior, I'd wave goodbye when they left for the airport on Sunday, wish them a wonderful trip, and play the role of the excluded father accepting his fate. Monday morning, they'd receive Amanda's email about the ownership change and policy updates. By the time they understood what had happened, they'd be mid-flight, unable to cancel, and I would be home in my dated house with my old curtains, waiting for the phone call I knew would come. The sunset painted the cove in shades of orange and gold. Paradise indeed. I turned and walked back toward the hotel, my hotel, to pack for tomorrow's flight. I returned to Orlando before dawn, my suitcase hidden in the back of my closet before the sun rose. The flight from St. Thomas had landed just after midnight, and I'd taken a taxi home through empty streets, rehearsing normalcy with each passing mile. By morning, there was no evidence I'd ever left. Jennifer appeared in the kitchen around 9, already making lists on her phone. Vacation mode had settled over her. That distracted excitement I remembered from when she was younger, planning trips with Margaret, was different now. This time, I wasn't invited. "Dad, have you seen my blue beach bag?" she asked. I appeared from the hallway with it. "Hall closet. I cleaned it after last summer." She took it without meeting my eyes. "Oh, thanks." I'd made coffee and set out her preferred creamer. Small gestures that cost nothing. Gestures that once meant everything. And now they barely registered. "Weather looks perfect," I said, pulling up the forecast on my tablet. "Low 80s, sunny all week." Great. I helped her pack that morning, finding her favorite swimsuit, checking that her phone charger would work with Virgin Islands outlets, folding clothes the way Margaret had taught me 40 years ago. Each movement was methodical, familiar, bitter. I placed the swimsuit in her luggage with the same care I'd used later to dismantle her expectations. Kevin arrived around noon, hauling their shared luggage like he owned the place. "Playing bellhop now, Robert?" he smirked. I continued folding a beach towel, just helping Jennifer. He dropped into my recliner, the one Patricia had judged during dinner, and checked his phone. "Travel is expensive. We're already stretched thin with this trip," he said, missing the point. I pulled 5 $100 bills from my wallet, counted them deliberately, and held them toward Jennifer. "Here, 500, pocket money." She took them without thanks and stuffed them into her purse. Kevin watched and muttered loud enough for me to hear, "At least the old man's good for something." I smiled faintly and said nothing. They left around 2 to handle last-minute errands. I continued my performance, washing lunch dishes, straightening the living room, acting like a man resigned to a quiet weekend alone. Through the window, I watched Kevin's car disappear down the street. Then I went to my closet and pulled out the overnight bag I'd packed that morning. Jennifer called around 6 from Dennis and Patricia's house, where they'd gather before tomorrow's early departure. "Dad, we're leaving at 10 tomorrow morning. Just wanted to let you know. Have a wonderful time." There was a pause, almost guilty. "We'll send photos." "I'd like that." After hanging up, I picked up my bag and hardened my expression. By 7, the street was quiet. I carried my bag 3 houses down to the corner where I'd arranged for a different taxi service to pick me up. No chance of Jennifer or Kevin driving past and seeing me leave. I was covering tracks they didn't know existed. The evening flight to St. Thomas departed at 8:15. I sat in coach, briefcase on my lap, going over final details. Amanda's protocols, staff assignments, the precise moment of revelation. This was theatre, and I was directing every scene. We landed at 11. The humid night air hit me as I descended the stairs to the tarmac, tropical weight fragrant with salt and vegetation. A taxi carried me back to Paradise Cove, through darkness, past shuttered shops and sleeping resort towns, my hotel, my property, my stage. I slept 4 hours in a small staff apartment Amanda had prepared, then rose at 6. While I showered in St. Thomas, Jennifer was probably waking in Orlando, checking her flight details one more time. While I dressed in business slacks and a pressed blue shirt, Kevin was likely making coffee in Dennis and Patricia's kitchen, eager to start their exclusive vacation. While I reviewed staff assignments in my office, they were loading luggage into Dennis's SUV, 2 stages, 2 performances about to collide. At 8, I gathered the staff in Paradise Cove's small conference room. Amanda sat at the front, tablet, ready. Marcus, our security coordinator, leaned against the wall. 2 housekeepers, the restaurant manager, and the front desk clerk joined us, everyone who'd interact with the Morgan party. I distributed printed instruction sheets professionally formatted, leaving nothing to interpretation. "The Morgan party checks in at 3 p.m., I said. "Party of 4. They're currently assigned to rooms 12 and 14. Amanda confirmed on her tablet. Standard rooms, not the Deluxe Ocean View suite they originally booked. I made eye contact with each staff member. "They will complain. You will explain the room reassignment was necessary due to the ownership transition. You will be professional and firm." The younger housekeeper raised her hand. "Is there a problem with these guests?" "Just follow the protocols exactly," Amanda said. After the meeting dispersed, Amanda lingered. "You're really doing this? Every word of those protocols exactly as written?" she asked. She studied me for a long moment. "And when they see you?" I checked my watch. 11 a.m. local time. The Morgan family was boarding their flight in Orlando right now. Dennis probably telling nearby passengers about their exclusive boutique resort. Patricia showing photos on her phone. They were walking down the jetway into a plane that would bring them here to me completely unaware. "They'll see the owner of this property," I said. "Nothing more, nothing less." Amanda nodded slowly. She'd chosen her side. I spent the next hours inspecting preparations. I walked through rooms 12 and 14, standard accommodations with parking lot views. I tested the water pressure, functional but weak. Nothing like the rainfall shower in the Deluxe suite they'd expected. I checked the air conditioning, noisy, humming loud enough to interfere with sleep. Everything was adequate. Nothing was wrong. Nothing was right. At 2, I changed into business attire and checked my reflection in the office mirror. composed, professional. The owner of a Caribbean resort conducting normal operations. No hint of the father they'd excluded, mocked, or planned to manipulate. At 2:30, I reviewed Amanda's screen one final time. Flight 1847 from Orlando had landed on schedule. They'd be collecting luggage and finding a taxi this way. At 2:47, I heard gravel crunch in the driveway. I straightened my collar and walked toward the lobby. Through the window, I saw a taxi pull into the circular drive and familiar figures emerge into the afternoon sunlight. Jennifer stepped out first, shading her eyes. Kevin followed, already surveying the property with proprietary assessment. Dennis and Patricia emerged from the other side. Patricia immediately began photographing the entrance. They had no idea what waited inside. I stepped back from the window and positioned myself in the office hallway where I could observe the reception desk. Amanda moved to her station. Marcus took his customary position near the entrance. I checked my watch one final time, 3 o'clock. The front doors opened and my family walked into my hotel. The lobby air conditioning met them with a gentle rush. I watched from the hallway as they took in the space. Smaller than they'd expected, probably, but beautiful in its tropical simplicity. Ceiling fans turned lazily overhead. Potted palms flanked the reception desk. Through the far windows, the pool glittered turquoise against ocean blue. Kevin approached the desk first with assertive confidence and slapped his credit card on the polished wood. "Morgan, party of 4, we have the Deluxe Ocean Views suite reserved." Amanda took the card with professional courtesy and began typing. Her screen showed the reassignments I'd implemented. She paused exactly as we'd rehearsed. "Yes, Mr. Morgan, I have your reservation. There's been a slight adjustment due to the ownership transition." "Adjustment?" Kevin interrupted. "We booked months ago. If you'll just wait in the lobby area, I'll have everything ready shortly." She gestured toward the seating area. Wicker furniture with tropical cushions and a coffee table displaying resort brochures. Kevin sighed with exaggerated patience and turned away. Jennifer settled onto the sofa and pulled out her phone. Dennis and Patricia remained standing, photographing the decor. Patricia touched a potted orchid to see if it was real. I stepped from the hallway, tablet in hand, accompanied by Marcus, who'd been briefed to follow my lead. I walked with the measured authority of someone reviewing daily operations, checking my screen, seemingly absorbed in resort business, professional and unhurried. I was 10 feet from them when Jennifer glanced up. Her face moved through a rapid sequence, casual attention, recognition, confusion. Her mouth opened slightly. "Dad!" The word hung in the air. Kevin's head snapped around. Dennis and Patricia froze mid-photograph. I looked up as if I'd just noticed them, showing no surprise. "Dad, what are you doing here?" Jennifer's voice carried genuine bewilderment. Kevin's confusion shifted to anger in an instant. "Are you serious? You followed us." I met his gaze evenly. "I work here." That stopped him. His expression cycled through incomprehension and settled into contempt. He laughed, harsh and incredulous. "You work here? What? You got a job at our resort to spy on us?" Dennis moved closer to Patricia and whispered too loudly. "This is inappropriate, completely inappropriate. This is harassment." Kevin took an aggressive step forward. "I want you out of here now." Other guests in the lobby turned to watch. An elderly man reading a newspaper lowered it slowly. I didn't move. "I'm conducting business." "Your business is ruining our vacation. Get out." Jennifer stood, trying to insert herself between us. "Kevin, maybe we..."
"Should know."
He cut her off, then turned to Amanda. "Get your manager, get security. I want this man removed from the property." Amanda signaled Marcus, who moved smoothly forward. Not threatening, just present. Professional hospitality, industry de-escalation, positioning himself to create space and radiate calm authority. "Sir, please lower your voice," Amanda said. "You're disturbing other guests." Kevin's face reddened. "I'm disturbing? He's the one stalking his own daughter." Marcus stepped closer in a quiet, firm voice. "Gentlemen, let's keep things calm." Kevin rounded on him. "Tell this man he needs to leave. We're paying guests." Amanda stood and drew every eye in the lobby. When she spoke, her voice carried perfect clarity, each word distinct. "Mr. Wilson is the owner of Paradise Cove Resort. As of August 19th, you are his guests." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the ceiling fan seemed quiet. The couple on the sofa stared openly now. The elderly man had abandoned all pretense of reading. Kevin's mouth worked soundlessly. "Owner?" Jennifer looked at me, colour draining from her face. You bought this hotel?" I met her eyes. "I did." Patricia's phone clattered to the tile floor. Dennis grabbed his wife's arm, steadying them both. Kevin recovered first, and aggression surged back. "This is insane. You can't." "I can," I said, calmly, cutting him off. I did. "Now, Miss Parker will finish your check-in. Your rooms are ready." Kevin's fist clenched at his sides and his breathing quickened. His face was still flushed. "We booked in good faith. This is our vacation. You can't just—" "Your reservation stands," Amanda interjected smoothly. "Paradise Cove Resort honors all existing bookings. There have been adjustments due to the ownership transition, which is standard practice. If you'd like to review—" "I don't want to review anything with him here," Kevin said, voice dropping to something dangerous. "This is a setup. This whole thing is a setup." For the first time, I allowed myself a small smile. "This is a hotel. You made a reservation. You're checking in. Everything is entirely standard." Jennifer sank back on the sofa, still staring at me like I was someone she'd never met, which perhaps was accurate. "How long have you—" she began, unable to finish. "I closed the purchase on Friday," I said. "That's 2 days ago." Dennis said faintly, "We booked 3 months ago." "Ownership changes happen," I continued. "The property was listed. I made an offer. Business." Kevin turned to Amanda, ignoring me. "Fine. We'll check in and then we'll be filing a complaint with the Tourism Board and Consumer Protection. This is fraud." "You're welcome to file whatever complaints you wish," Amanda replied. "Your confirmation number is in our system. Everything is documented. Shall I continue with check-in?" She slid the registration form across the desk. Kevin snatched a pen and signed with violent strokes. Jennifer sat motionless, phone forgotten in her lap. Patricia retrieved her phone from the floor, but seemed uncertain what to do with it. Dennis kept glancing between me and Kevin, calculating. Amanda typed efficiently, then reached beneath the desk for keycards and set 2 on the counter. "You're in rooms 12 and 14 on the 2nd floor. The porter will help with your bags." Kevin's eyes narrowed. 12 and 14. We booked the Deluxe Ocean View suite. Due to the ownership transition and property updates, some reassignments were necessary, Amanda said. Jennifer slid her keycard into room 12's lock. The green light blinked permission. She pushed the door open and stepped inside, then stopped. I watched on Amanda's security feed. Amanda had positioned the monitor so I could observe without being obvious. Jennifer stood motionless in the doorway, taking in the standard room with its parking lot view, dated furniture, and the narrow bathroom visible through the half-open door. This was not the Deluxe Ocean View suite shown in their booking photos. She walked to the window like someone underwater, movements slow and dreamlike. She pulled the curtain aside and stared at the parking lot, the dumpster enclosure, a maintenance shed with peeling paint. Kevin pushed past her into room 14, his parents' assigned space, and immediately began complaining. I couldn't hear the words through the camera, but his gestures were clear. Arms spread wide, pointing at the window. Dennis appeared behind him, face sagging with comprehension. Patricia sank onto the bed, clutching her purse. Within 10 minutes, my desk phone rang. Ms. Morgan is online too regarding her room assignment, Amanda said, her voice professional. I listened to the recorded call later. Jennifer's voice was tight with restrained anger. We booked a deluxe ocean view suite. This is a standard room with a parking lot view. Amanda's response was exactly as scripted. I apologize for the confusion, Miss Morgan. During the ownership transition, we had to reassign several reservations due to renovation scheduling. Your rate remains the same. Can we upgrade? Pay the difference? I'm afraid the deluxe rooms are fully booked through your checkout date. Jennifer hung up without responding. That evening, they attempted dinner at our restaurant, the only nearby dining option within walking distance. I positioned myself at a corner table with paperwork spread before me, reviewing operational reports while remaining visible, professional, untouchable, the owner conducting business. When their menus arrived, Kevin's expression shifted. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through screenshots of our old pricing. His jaw tightened. The server approached. These prices don't match your website, Kevin said. New management implemented updated pricing yesterday, sir, the server replied. All platforms were updated simultaneously. Kevin looked across the restaurant at me. I didn't acknowledge him. I just signed the document Amanda had brought for approval. He approached my table a moment later, Dennis reluctantly trailing behind. The prices on this menu don't match what's on your website, he said. New management, new pricing. Updated yesterday across all platforms, I said. That's convenient timing. That's business, Kevin. If the rates don't suit you, I'm sure other properties would welcome your reservation. His face colored. The nearest hotel was 15 miles away. He stood a moment, breathed through his nose, then returned to his table. Their dinner, simple entrees and drinks, cost them $180 before tip. I watched Patricia's face when the bill arrived. She looked as if she'd bitten something sour. The next morning brought new complications. At precisely 6 a.m., maintenance began work on the hot water system. The pipes ran through the walls adjacent to rooms 12 and 14. The sound was impressive, hammering, clanging, water rushing through old plumbing. Perfectly legal, perfectly timed. I conducted my morning property walkthrough at 6:15 with a clipboard in hand and happened to pass their rooms, just as Dennis emerged in his bathrobe, hair standing at angles and looking haggard. Morning. Sorry for the noise. Necessary repairs should wrap up by 7, I said. He blinked, too tired to respond. I continued my inspection, noting items on my clipboard that had nothing to do with him. By the third day, the pattern was undeniable. The Wi-Fi became unstable, functional in the lobby and restaurant, mysteriously dropping in their specific rooms. Our technician shrugged apologetically. Island infrastructure. Sometimes signals don't reach certain areas. Room service orders were delayed, not excessively, nothing actionable, but 60 to 90 minutes instead of the promised 30 to 45. Kitchen backups during peak hours happened sometimes. Pool hours were adjusted for cleaning. Routine maintenance scheduled from 2 to 4 p.m. Prime afternoon hours when Dennis and Patricia planned to be poolside. Each incident alone was minor. Together they were suffocating. Kevin documented everything. I saw him through the window, photographing his parking lot view, timing room service deliveries with his phone stopwatch, recording the Wi-Fi disconnections. He was building a case, collecting evidence. For what exactly, I wasn't sure, but it didn't concern me. Everything I'd implemented fell within acceptable hotel operations: maintenance, infrastructure outages, kitchen delays. No violation of law or standard, just persistent inconvenience. On August 23rd, Kevin confronted me near reception with his laptop open, showing documentation. "The Wi-Fi in our rooms doesn't work," he said. "Amanda mentioned connectivity issues. We've contacted the service provider. When will it be fixed?" he demanded. I checked my watch. They indicated 24 to 48 hours for technician availability. The business center and lobby have stable connections if you need internet access. "This is ridiculous," he said. "This is island infrastructure. I don't control the telecommunications provider schedule." He slammed his laptop closed and walked away. By the evening of August 24th, the family was fragmenting. From my office window, I watched Jennifer sit alone by the pool during the brief hours it remained open. Kevin paced nearby, phone pressed to his ear, probably researching alternatives and finding none in their price range. Dennis and Patricia huddled under an umbrella, whispering with tight urgency and occasionally glancing toward Jennifer with unsympathetic expressions. The pressure was working exactly as designed. That night, lights burned late in room 14. Dennis and Patricia were awake, loudly discussing options and finding none acceptable. In room 12, Jennifer's silhouette moved past the window repeatedly, pacing and unable to settle. Kevin's light stayed on past midnight. Maintenance staff reported hearing rapid, aggressive typing through the thin walls. I made a note on my tablet. Monitoring required. Then I returned to legitimate operational business, vendor contracts, staffing issues, quarterly projections Amanda had flagged for my other properties. Paradise Cove was a real hotel. I was running it properly, improving systems and addressing genuine maintenance needs. The Morgans were experiencing transitional growing pains of new ownership, unfortunate timing or perfect timing, depending on perspective. The next morning, Amanda called my cell at 8. "Sir, you should know the family posted several negative reviews overnight." "How bad?" I asked. "1 star across 3 platforms. Language is aggressive. Accusations of discrimination and harassment." "Are any allegations factually accurate?" "No, everything we did was within policy and law. Draft professional responses, acknowledge dissatisfaction, reference the ownership transition, offer a general commitment to service improvement, and don't engage with specific accusations." "Send them for my approval," I said. I pulled up the reviews. Dennis and Patricia's was venomous. "Owner engages in targeted harassment. After discovering personal connection, our experience was systematically degraded. Unethical business practices, discriminatory treatment, avoid at all costs." Kevin had adopted legal-sounding language, breach of contract for room assignments, unauthorized price increases, conflict of interest, consumer rights violations, legal recourse. They were angry and desperate, grasping for weapons they didn't have. My responses, careful, professional, reviewed by Amanda, went live by noon. "We regret this guest's dissatisfaction. Ownership transitions occasionally require operational adjustments as we work to improve service standards. We appreciate all feedback and remain committed to providing quality hospitality." Professional, unassailable, untouchable. In room 14, I imagined Kevin refreshing the review sites, seeing my response, realizing it gave him nothing to attack. 3 more days until checkout. 3 more days until they would face the bill, calculated at new rates, including service charges, resort fees, and incidentals. 3 more days until they returned to Orlando and discovered what I'd done with the house. Kevin's response appeared online the next morning at 7, detailed, methodical, citing statutes about consumer protection in the Virgin Islands. He'd clearly spent hours on it. The timestamps show precise effort. Impressive. Useless. By 9, he was sitting in a local attorney's office. Amanda later told me she overheard him scheduling the consultation. Small island, small resort, information traveled. The consultation cost him $350. I knew because he complained about it loudly to Jennifer in the hallway afterward. The attorney had found nothing actionable. Price changes were legally implemented with required notice. Room reassignments during ownership transitions were within hotel rights. Maintenance was routine. Wi-Fi failures were infrastructure issues. We can leave negative reviews or find alternative accommodation, the attorney told them. That's it. That's our legal recourse. Jennifer's response was too quiet to hear. Kevin's follow-up was not. $350 to be told we're screwed, he said. An hour later, my phone rang. Jennifer's name lit the screen. I answered on the third ring. Hello, Jennifer. Her breathing was ragged and unsteady. How could you do this to us? Her voice was breaking. She'd been crying. I heard it in the thickness of her words. How could you do this to your own daughter? I kept my tone measured and calm. I'm conducting business. You wanted a vacation without me. You have one. You're punishing us. This is cruel. This is what you chose. I'm simply providing the service you're paying for. When we get back, we're evicting you from our house. We'll sell it whether you like it or not. Ice crystallized in my chest. This was the moment I'd anticipated and prepared for. Try it, I said, flat. 2 words. Final. She sobbed once, loud and harsh. Then the line went dead. I sat in my Paradise Cove office, phone in hand, and considered the conversation. Jennifer was unraveling. Good. Kevin was desperate, throwing money at attorneys who couldn't help him. Better. Dennis and Patricia were humiliated. Their bragging to neighbors was now a source of mortification. Perfect. But the house threat required immediate action. I booked an afternoon flight to Orlando. Michael Thompson's office was exactly as I remembered. Modest, professional, paperwork organized in precise stacks. He had the trust documents printed and tabbed with colored flags marking where I needed to sign. This makes the property untouchable without your explicit authorization, he explained, sliding the first page across his desk. Your daughter cannot force a sale, cannot claim inheritance rights while you're living, and cannot contest the arrangement without significant legal expense. That's exactly what I need, I said. May I ask what prompted this level of protection? He asked. Family complications, I replied. Michael nodded, asking nothing further. I signed and initialed where indicated. Each signature was another lock on something Jennifer thought she could take from me. When Margaret and I bought this house in 1999, Jennifer was 11, running through empty rooms before we'd even moved furniture in. She'd claimed the bedroom with the window seat and made us promise it would always be hers. I'd kept that promise for 26 years. Now she wanted to sell it to pay off credit cards. Speaking of which, at Michael's desk I pulled up my credit monitoring app. I'd co-signed 2 of Jennifer's cards years ago when she was establishing credit. The linked accounts showed $48,000 in debt, multiple cards opened, or significantly increased within the last 6 months, a personal loan from a predatory lender at 18% interest, cash advances, balance transfers. The pattern of people juggling and counting on money they didn't have, counting on my house. I took screenshots of the timeline, the debt acceleration beginning in June, around the time Kevin announced the vacation, the same period they began pressuring me to sell. They'd spent money they expected to get from my equity. Everything looks in order, Michael said, applying his notary seal to the final page. I'll file these with the county recorder this afternoon. You'll have complete protection. I slid 1 copy into my briefcase, left another with Michael, and carried the 3rd to my car. My flight back to St. Thomas didn't leave until the next morning, so I spent the night at home, my legally protected, completely controlled home. I walked through the rooms Jennifer wanted to sell, touching the walls Margaret had helped paint, standing in the kitchen where we'd made breakfast for 30 years. Jennifer could threaten all she wanted. This house was mine. I returned to Paradise Cove on the morning of August 26th. Amanda met me in the office with updates. The Morgan family was subdued, spending minimal time in their rooms and avoiding the restaurant where the prices hurt too much. They'd found a food truck 3 miles down the road for cheaper meals. "The heat's getting to them," Amanda reported. "Mrs. Morgan looked sunburned and exhausted yesterday." "And the reviews?" I asked. "Your responses are posted, professional, brief. We've had 3 new bookings since yesterday. People read the reviews and appreciated our transparency about the transition period." "Good. The negative reviews were actually helping. People understood ownership changes could cause temporary disruption. My measured responses demonstrated professionalism. Kevin's attacks were backfiring." "One more thing," Amanda said. "Mr. Morgan asked about early checkout, if leaving a day early would reduce their bill." "What did you tell him?" "Our cancellation policy requires full payment for reserved dates, regardless of early departure." "Good." He asked what the final bill would total. I calculated it. With updated rates, meals, services, resort fees, and incidentals, the final amount came to approximately $4,200, more than double what they'd budgeted, I imagined, more than they expected when Kevin smugly poured my wine at my dining table and when Jennifer said they needed a break from me. Amanda continued. He went pale, said, "There must be an error." "Is there?" "No, everything is accurate according to current pricing and their usage." "Then there's no error," I said. I spent the rest of August 26th reviewing business operations. Paradise Cove had guests besides the Morgans. They deserved proper service. I approved Amanda's staffing schedule, reviewed the quarterly maintenance budget, and met with our food vendor about supply chain improvements. By evening, I was genuinely tired from real work. Through my office window, I saw the Morgan family sitting separately around the pool, no longer together. Jennifer on one lounge chair, Kevin on another 10 feet away, Dennis and Patricia at a table. They'd stopped talking to each other. The vacation they'd bragged about had become a prison sentence they endured in isolated silence. One more day until checkout. One more day until they faced that $4,200 bill. One more day until they returned to Orlando and discovered the house was beyond their reach. I opened my briefcase, pulled out the trust document copy, and read every clause, every protection, every guarantee of my absolute control. The house was mine alone. From Amanda's report, they had no idea what waited for them at checkout. I allowed myself a moment of satisfaction, not joy, not cruelty, just the cold satisfaction of pieces falling into place exactly as designed. Then I locked the document back in my briefcase. Tomorrow would bring the final moves. Tonight I'd let them sit with their expensive mediocrity, their shattered vacation dreams, and their fragmenting family unity. Tonight I'd let them wonder what else I'd planned. They'd find out soon enough. I spent August 26th reviewing final details with Amanda. The Morgan family had requested early checkout, departing the 27th instead of the 28th, trying to escape a day early, as if leaving sooner would erase what had happened. "They seem eager to get home," Amanda said diplomatically. "I imagine they are." She pulled up their account on her screen. "The final bill is ready for review," she said. I studied the itemization, room charges at current rates, restaurant meals, room service orders, resort fees, incidentals, every charge legitimate and legally posted, the mathematics of consequence calculated down to the last dollar. "Process it exactly as shown," I said. "No adjustments." The morning of the 27th, I watched from my office window as they carried luggage to reception. Dennis moved slowly, looking older than he had a week ago. Patricia kept her sunglasses on despite being indoors. Kevin's posture was rigid, controlled fury in every movement. Jennifer walked last, shoulders curved inward, and diminished. Amanda greeted them with professional courtesy. "Good morning. Checking out?" Kevin placed the key cards on the counter with precision. "Yes. Early departure." Amanda's fingers moved across the keyboard. The printer hummed to life and produced the final bill. She placed it face down on the counter and slid it toward Kevin with practiced grace. He picked it up confidently and flipped it over. His hand froze mid-air. I couldn't hear his exact words from my office, but I saw his mouth form them. "This says $4,200. Amanda's response was calm and rehearsed. She gestured to the itemized breakdown and explained each section: updated rates, dining expenses, resort fees, documented legal. Kevin's voice rose. Other guests glanced over. Amanda maintained composure, referencing terms and conditions, ownership transition clauses, and email notifications sent August 19th. Kevin pulled out a credit card and tapped it against the terminal. Declined. He tried again, entering a PIN manually. Declined. He yanked out a different card. The terminal beeped rejection. His face went white. Sweat appeared on his forehead, despite the air conditioning. He turned to Dennis. I couldn't hear the exchange, but Dennis shook his head slowly and looked at the floor. Patricia pulled her purse closer, protective. Jennifer stepped forward, didn't speak or meet Kevin's eyes, handed Amanda her credit card, and stared at the wall while the transaction processed. Approved. She took the receipt, folded it without looking, and put it in her purse. The family moved toward the exit like people leaving a hospital after bad news. Slow, silent, defeated. I didn't watch them drive away. They were no longer my concern. Amanda came to my office an hour later. "They're gone. Thank you for handling that professionally. It was difficult to watch." She paused. "Even knowing the context, consequences are always difficult. That's what makes them effective." I flew back to Orlando that afternoon. While they traveled in heavy silence, I imagined their flight. The four of them unable to look at each other, Kevin staring out the window, Jennifer, with closed eyes, Dennis and Patricia in another row. I reviewed Amanda's operational reports for the week. Paradise Cove had functioned well. Other guests had left positive reviews. The Morgan family's negative reviews had actually increased bookings. People appreciated our transparent, professional responses. The business was solid. The revenge was complete. I'd timed everything precisely. While they were in St. Thomas, David Richardson had delivered the trust documents to my house, left in a legal envelope on the kitchen table where they couldn't miss it. They'd arrive home exhausted, financially strained, emotionally fractured, and find that envelope waiting. I landed in Orlando that evening, but didn't go home. I stayed at one of my hotels instead, the boutique property in Winter Park. Nice, but not ostentatious. I wanted them to discover the documents without me there, to read the trust structure, and understand that the house they'd planned to sell was completely beyond their reach. The next morning, August 28th, I returned to my house. The kitchen showed evidence of Kevin's rage: mail scattered on the floor, a decorative bowl broken, a dent in the wall near the counter. The legal envelope lay torn open, and the documents were strewn across the table. They'd been here. They'd discovered the truth and left. I cleaned up the broken bowl and stacked the mail. I left the dent in the wall. Evidence is useful sometimes. My phone rang that evening. Dennis. "Robert," he said carefully and measured, "I wanted to apologize for the condition we left your kitchen in. Kevin was upset. Patricia and I had no idea about the house situation. If we'd known..." His voice trailed off. "The Hendersons asked about the exclusive resort. They saw the reviews online. Someone posted photos. I'm sure that was awkward. Patricia is mortified. We told everyone this would be a luxury vacation. It was a vacation at a resort. The luxury was your assumption." Silence. Then quietly, "Kevin and Jennifer are staying with us temporarily. just until they figure things out." "That's generous of you," I said. "Not really. We can barely afford it. The lawyer consultation, meal expenses, changing flights, they're tapped out." I said nothing. What was there to say? They'd aligned themselves with Kevin and Jennifer's plans. They'd participated in my exclusion. Now they experienced the aftermath. "Is there any way—" Dennis began. "No," I answered before he finished. "You don't know what I was going to ask." "Yes, I do. And the answer is no, you made choices. These are the consequences." He hung up without goodbye. 3 hours later, Jennifer called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Broken, sobbing, barely coherent. Something about $1,800 a month, something about debt, something about Kevin blaming her for not controlling me. I listened once, then deleted it. This was exactly what needed to happen. They needed to sit with what they'd done and understand the full weight of their choices. Jennifer's tears were not repentance yet, just self-pity. She was crying because of consequences, not because she genuinely understood her failures. That night, alone in my house with dated curtains and worn furniture, I walked through rooms that had raised Jennifer from childhood into adulthood. Her bedroom still had the window seat where she'd read for hours. The kitchen still had the step stool I'd built so she could help Margaret cook. This house was filled with memories of a daughter I'd loved unconditionally. That daughter had disappeared somewhere along the way. Maybe she could come back. Maybe not. But I'd done what I needed to do, shown her that respect matters, that people are not resources, that fathers, even ones with modest houses and old jackets, have dignity that shouldn't be casually trampled. Whether she learned from this was up to her. I'd taught the lesson, the rest was hers to figure out. 2 days later, she knocked on my door. I opened it to find Jennifer diminished. No makeup, simple clothes, exhausted beyond words. "Dad, can we talk?" she asked. I stepped aside and she sat on the sofa's edge, hands folded. "I was a terrible daughter. You were always there and I treated you like you were invisible. I'm so sorry." I kept my expression neutral. "I didn't do this for revenge," I said. "I did it to show you what respect looks like." She nodded, tears falling. I didn't comfort her. She needed to sit with this. On September 2nd, she returned with news. "Cal and I are divorcing," she said. He'd blamed her for not controlling me. She showed me divorce papers, credit counselor appointments, and job applications. "I'm taking responsibility." I wrote 2 options on paper. 1, Kevin and Jennifer pay what they owe, and we're done. 2, you stay alone, pay rent, and rebuild independently. Maybe we repair things. She pointed to option 2 without hesitation. "No money from me, no shortcuts. I'm certain." On September 5th, she brought cheap sandwiches. We ate on the terrace. I showed her my hotel portfolio, 4 properties, and millions in assets. "This was always you?" she said, voice breaking. I told her I didn't want money to change her, but I had changed anyway. I'd become someone who sees people as resources rather than as family. We sat in evening quiet. Not forgiveness yet, that required time, but not war anymore either. She came back the following week and the week after. Each visit she was more grounded. I remained guarded and offered no financial help, but I showed up. Because revenge isn't about destroying others. It's about restoring your own dignity, demonstrating consequences, and then, if they prove worthy, offering the possibility of redemption. Jennifer was working for hers. Whether she'd earn it remained to be seen, but she was trying, and I was willing to let her try. That was enough for now. If you like this story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions in the comments. To listen to the next story, click the box on the left.